All right, peace family. Give everybody a few minutes to hop on. Make sure you're liking and sharing the video. For everyone who's following and watching this live on IG, I'm actually filming this for my new YouTube channel, so you'll see me looking directly at this camera. But definitely make sure if you guys have any questions, we'll hop into the Q&A a little bit after this video is wrapped up. So today we're going to talk about why you shouldn't pay your collection accounts off. Now, just a little bit about myself. My name is Will Roundtree, owner of We Management Services, credit mastery instructor for the J. Morrison Academy, the author of the book Credit is King. If you have not picked up your copy of the book, definitely make sure you do so. I mean, we literally get testimonials every single day, people reaching out to us stating that not only has the book given them information, they've given it to their teenage kids to properly equip them that are in high school, getting ready for college. Had a lot of people have success just in rebuilding their credit, improving their credit, understanding the fundamentals of business credit. So just a lot of different content, information that's in that book. And like I always say, that what separates the successful from unsuccessful is information. So, you know, if you're trying to program your mind with new information, you definitely want to pick up that book. But, you know, one of the things I always like to talk about, and I'm very passionate about, is credit for a couple different reasons. One, because I know what it's done for me personally, my family, my friends. I mean, it's literally changed, you know, the entire way I view life. It's changed the entire trajectory of my life. It's put us in a position to where now we've been able to travel the country and give people this information for free. You know, not only that, you know, credit has helped me build, you know, a multi-million-dollar company in 3 years with the tutelage of multiple mentors. Definitely a huge shout out to my mentor and my brother, my partner, J. Morrison. You know, I've had many mentors along the years. But you know, if you're anything like me, you definitely didn't grow up understanding anything about credit. You know, for so many years we've been taught that credit is bad, credit is the devil. I mean, we've heard all these different cliches, but more importantly, that we've always been taught to look at credit from the lens of a consumer as opposed to a business person. And so for all my entrepreneurs and business owners and up and coming entrepreneurs and business owners, seasoned and experienced business owners, they understand your credit is the lifeline to your business. And understanding that, or once you've understood that, you start to gauge and look at credit from a different lens. And that's really the thing that I want to show people and why I'm so passionate about providing this information. Again, for those who just hopped on IG, I'm also filming for this video live. That will be going to my YouTube. So for anyone who has not subscribed to the YouTube yet, Mr. Will Roundtree on YouTube, Mr. Will Roundtree on YouTube. I'm going to be dropping a lot of great content in the next week or so. So definitely make sure you go and subscribe, like, and share this video. And so just going back to credit, you know, because we've been looking at credit from a consumer standpoint, you know, we have all these sayings about credit. You know, we think credit is just for about being able to purchase a house, to be able to purchase a car. But, you know, I talk to parents who have kids getting ready to go to college. Your credit dictates and determines whether you can help them get a student loan. You know, like I always mention, for those who have kids and children that are still in school, your credit indirectly can dictate what school zone your kids go to school in. So it's just so much more that credit provides and brings to us. Auto insurance, you know, your credit scores and your premium, your auto insurance premiums are a direct reflection of your credit score. Life insurance companies are looking at ways to use credit to dictate what type of premiums you get from health insurance. For life insurance policies. I mean, employers, I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. I mean, that 3-digit number pretty much is going to be the ultimate dictator, the ultimate barometer of our lives. And we have such a taboo there's such a taboo about talking about credit about our personal credit and our personal finances and different things like that, that we need to, first of all, we need to release those shackles of pridefulness. We need to release those shackles of being ashamed, because someone can't help you if you're not letting them know that you are in need of the help. You know, seek out the information, seek out the knowledge, you know, seek after mentorship, which, you know, I was fortunate enough to be, you know, in the presence of a mentor who indirectly gave me information about credit that literally changed my entire life. And so in 2003, I had a real estate attorney who was a mentor of mine. He didn't even know he was my mentor. He was just so brilliant and so financially savvy. I would literally just call him to pick his brains just so I can soak up game and get different information from him. And what he said really resonated with me all the way until 2018 today. Is he said, "Will, eventually credit is going to become the new dollar." Of course, I didn't know what he meant by that at the time, but when I moved to Las Vegas in 2005, I quickly found out. Wasn't able to rent an apartment, wasn't able to buy a car without a cosigner. I mean, here I am 25 years old and I'm needing a cosigner for a vehicle. And so those things really dawned on me because, you know, I was always one of independence. I mean, I moved out and got my own apartment at the age of 17 while going to college and working a full-time job. So I was an extremely independent individual growing up, but I knew that as long as my credit was going to be a challenge for me, you know, I quickly had to rely on others to be able to help me position myself even further in life. And so with that being said, you know, I just made it a quest of mine to find out as much information as I can about credit, understanding, you know, the importance of it, what is credit, how to improve it. And, you know, it actually took me about 2 years to personally improve my own personal credit situation. I mean, my credit score was in the low 400s back around 2005. And, you know, and I didn't even know. The only thing I knew is I kept getting denied for everything. And like what a lot of us used to do at those times is we get denied and we go and apply and try somewhere else, hoping that for whatever reason they're going to eventually approve us. And then next thing you know, you're 25 applications in, whether you're trying to buy that car or you're going on a credit card application binge because you're trying to find someone that will approve you for credit with bad credit. First of all, that doesn't exist. You know, I get people that reach out to us all the time saying, "Hey, is there a place where I can get a loan for bad credit?" The answer is no. Now, yeah, definitely you can go down to a payday loan place and, you know, deal with the interest rates of those places for 500-600%. But you don't have to do that, because what you're going to pay back in interest over time, you're going to pay for that loan 5-10 times over. You might as well invest a little bit of money, a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of time, and improve your credit, because credit is the lifeline to your business and even just your personal life. I mean, credit should be looked at and viewed as a just in case, because we understand life happens. You know, I'm one that says, or one that believes that at minimum, you should have access to at least $10,000 of revolving credit, just because life happens. And the last thing you want to do is be in a scenario where, you know, you don't have any liquid capital and you don't have a credit card, because again, that credit card can kind of be that just in case of emergency type of situation. But throughout that 2 years of my quest of learning and really educating myself about credit, one of the things that I come to find out is that dealing with those infamous collection accounts. And so if you notice, I say, you know, why you should never just pay a collection account off. And I'm going to give you guys that information. But I'm telling you, this information is not only going to save you time, energy, and money, but it's definitely going to position you to look at things and how you do things a little bit differently for all those who are out there trying to restore and rebuild and repair their own personal credit. And so the thing in relation to collection accounts, first of all, for those who don't know what a collection account is, because I have had people ask that question, it's essentially where you have an original creditor. Laura, let's go to. So let's say you have a credit card and you have a $500 limit on that credit card, okay? Let's just say this is Visa, all right? For whatever reason, you default, meaning usually they send your account to collections after 4 months of missed payments. So after 4 months of missed payments, you have 120-day lates on your credit report, generally they'll send that account to a collection agency, meaning a third-party company bought this debt for pennies on a dollar. And usually they bought it for about 5 to 10 cents on the dollar, sometimes even less than that, because they bought a portfolio of debt, meaning there's hundreds of accounts of people who owe this particular credit card company. So your particular account just so happened was in that portfolio. So this account goes to collections. Now, same thing with charge-off accounts. Essentially what a charge-off is you have where the company has written the debt off on their taxes. And this is common with some credit card companies, depending on who the bank is. And then also when you have a vehicle that gets or may get repossessed, meaning you owe, let's say, $15,000 on a vehicle, you turn it in or they come and repossess it or whatever the case is. What happens is that vehicle then goes to auction and it may sell for $10,000. So they may have there's still a $5,000 gap. What may have happened is that they wrote this amount off on their taxes, so now you have a charged off account. Okay? Now, charge off, collections, it all encompasses the same thing. It all is going to affect your credit profile in the same fashion. And one collection account, one charge off account can drop a credit score anywhere from 50 to 100 points. Easily. Whether that collection account is for $1 or $100,000. It's going to impact you the exact same way, because what happens is that the credit report doesn't read the dollar amount. Now, of course, you have your debt to income ratio, which can make it lopsided, but overall what it does is it reads it being a collection account. It reads it being a charge-off, and that's how it's going to impact you from a credit score standpoint. Now, also, with that being said, I get people to say, well, how do you get a collection account for $1? You'd be very surprised. There are companies out there where if, let's say you wrote a check for a bill and you were $1 off, they will send you to collections for that $1, because everything that they do is all computer generated. So only thing that happened was their computer read that you were $1 short, and they sent you to collections. So understand that you always want to make sure, because I see this happen a lot too, is people are scared to open their mail. You can't be scared to open your mail, because $1 debt can drastically impact our credit scores. And of course we want to mitigate and minimize these type of scenarios as much as possible. So now getting to the meat and potatoes, why don't we want to pay off our collection accounts? So I'll give you an example. So let's say you have a credit profile and you have a collection account that is 5 years old, okay? And that same Visa card, that's $500. Now, first of all debt has what's called a statute of limitations. Essentially, the statute of limitations mean the time period that they can come and actually sue you for that debt. Now, most states, all states have different statute of limitations. I recommend, and you can actually just go to Google and type in, statute of limitations for Las Vegas for credit card debt, statute of limitations for, Chicago, statute of limitations for Atlanta, and it will actually give you the time period that company has to sue you. Now, the statute of limitations does not mean how long it stays on the report. I want to preference that, because a lot of people think that's what the case is. The statute of limitations essentially is the time frame they have to sue you for that debt. So if you have a collection account on your report that's 5 years old from the last date of activity, the last date of activity means the last time they received a payment for this account. So if the last date of activity was 5 years ago, it is now outside the statute of limitations, so they cannot sue you for this debt. Now, let's say this was with the collection agency for 5 years, and within that 5-year time period, 2.5 years in, you felt bad and you felt morally obligated to make some type of payment arrangement to pay this $500 credit card bill. So what happens is you call and you set up a payment arrangement, and you're going to send them, $50 a month, okay, until you pay this off in full. Now, what essentially happened is that this 5-year clock just reset. Meaning, let's say for whatever reason you default and you stop making payments and you pay $400 into the 500, but you just say, you know what, I'm tired of paying that, it's not going to help me anyway, or whatever excuse you come up with. What's going to happen is that this statute of limitations in the clock for that debt actually starts over. So now the last date of activity is a year old, and this company can now come back and collect after you. Plus, it's going to report on your credit report for an additional 7 years. So this information is extremely vital because I see people make these mistakes all the time, and you want to be very careful, because keep in mind, all a collection agency is it's a third-party company that purchased debt, and the only way they can recoup their money is to be able to call you and get you to pay that debt. And I mean, literally, you know, I can start a collection agency today. You know, you can start a collection agency today and go out and do the exact same thing. They don't have any jurisdiction to do some of the threatening things that they said they are going to do to you. So it's extremely important you understand how to, you know, tactfully deal with collection agencies, because what you don't know can hurt you. Hence in point, making a payment arrangement and not fulfilling that. Now, another thing is you never settle account. Never settle the collection account. And this is why. Going back to the scenario where you have the $500 account that's in collections, and a lot of times what they'll do, because they figure, you know what, he hasn't paid this $500 in 5 years, we may not be able to get the full $500, so we'll go ahead and offer them $250 settlement. Now what happens is they'll offer you $250, you're feeling good because you're like, man, I saved some money, I'm able to not have to pay the whole thing. But what essentially is going to happen is they're going to say your account was settled for less than the full balance, and it's going to report on your credit report as a paid collection, and that paid collection still is going to impact your score and ultimately could drop your credit score. And here's why. So going back to the scenario, 5-year-old account, okay, and you took the settlement offer for $250. So what happens is that account being 5 years old, it becomes less impactful on your credit profile and less impactful to your credit score. When you took the settlement offer, what it did is it reported as settled for less than half the balance, and it's going to show a paid collection account for $0. Now keep in mind, I just spoke upon earlier about the dollar amount of the collection account is irrelevant as far as it actually dropping your credit score. So the fact that this is going to report like a brand new collection account, because now it's $0, hence is why it's going to drop your score, because keep in mind it's been dormant for 5 years. And so it had less impact, because let's say you've been rebuilding your credit score over in between that time. And so again, what you don't know can hurt you, because I've seen this happen a lot of times. I actually had a client who had got an inheritance and went off and paid about $15,000 worth of her debt that was in collections, charge-offs, and everything like that, and her score dropped tremendously. And I mean, she was distraught. She was trying to purchase a house. She didn't know what to do. And ultimately, because she didn't have access to this information. So another reason why I tell people you want to go out and purchase that book, not just because I'm trying to plug it because it's my book, but all this information is in there. You know, I get people all the time that reach out to me and say, hey, I got a 5-minute question. Can you hop on the phone with me? And trust me, I would love to speak with each and one of you every single day. But, you know, right now I don't have the capacity. But every question that you may have about credit is in that book. So make sure that you go out and purchase that book. You know, I'm trying to, let's make it one of the top selling books, for infinite amount of time. It literally being the mecca of about credit, because, all this information is in there. So now, this is the reason why you never want to pay collection account. Like I mentioned, this situation where she got an inheritance for over $15,000, she went and paid about $15,000 of her debt off, and her credit score dropped. So paying a collection account off can drop your credit score, especially if it's been if it's been less impactful from your file or on your credit profile for a amount of years. You know, because the last thing you don't want to happen, which I've seen this, is, you know, typically the debt can only sit on your credit report for 7 years from the last date of activity. All right. Now, does it always come off right at the 7-year mark? No. And I talk to people all the time, oh, I'll just wait till 7 years and it'll fall off. That's a myth. It doesn't always just fall off. Sometimes you have to dispute that information. So, you know, which the Credit is King book has some sample letters in there too, just the FYI. So I've seen scenarios where the debt is 11 months old. They go through, do a settlement offer, pay $250 on a $500 credit card. Not only did their score drop, but now that debt can report for another 7 years on the report because they didn't fulfill the payment arrangement with that account. So you want to be cognizant of all these different things, again, because what you don't know can hurt you. Or the last thing you want to do is, which I've seen this happen before too, you're getting ready to purchase a house, you're at the closing table, and then a collection account pops up. You know, I actually had a library bill from 1998 pop up. You know, well, first of all, they sent me a letter. This was about 4 or 5 years ago. And they couldn't put it on my credit because, I mean, the debt was over 15 plus years old or somewhere within that time frame. So again, these companies will try to scare you. But again, because everyone who is on this live or you know, on Instagram or whatever, watching the YouTube video, knows this information like the back of their hand, you don't fall for those tricks, you know. So because these companies will try to trick you. So you don't want to just pay the collection account because, one, you run the risk of the statute of limitations reoccurring. You run the risk of the time it can report on your credit report. You run the risk of your credit score dropping. You run the risk of you just being out of $15,000 worth of collection accounts that you paid off that had no impact to your profile, which is why it's important, no matter where your credit is or how damaged it is, you work on rebuilding it as well. So I'm going to give you guys a quick tip on what you should do if you have a collection account. So one of the things that I always recommend is you do what's called a pay for deletion. Essentially, a pay for deletion is, going back to the example, you have the $500 collection account that was with Visa. It's 5 years old. Oops. 5 years old, and it's with collection agency. Okay. Now, what you can do is you call up collection agency, and you never admit to the debt. Couple reasons why. One is you never want them to try to come back and use anything against you in court, especially if the debt is still within the statute of limitations. But more importantly, even though the debt is reported on your credit report, they may not be reporting the information accurately. So the second option that I'm going to show you on how to handle collection accounts effectively is the reason why you never want to say, hey, it's mine. You know, yeah, granted, they may be, because keep in mind, they charge interest and penalties and different things. So this $500 may actually come out to $575.25. And if they're not reporting that down to the penny accurately, they can't report this information on your credit report. So I'm going to talk about that here shortly. But let's just say, for the sake of this example, $500 collection account, a pay for deletion. You call in a collection agency, and essentially you're saying, look, I don't even know if the debt is technically mine or, you know, where you guys got it from. But all I know is I want to pay this account in full in lieu of you guys deleting it off my credit report. Now, in some states, you can actually go within your local city to that collection agency's office in person and pay that off. And then what'll happen is they'll give you a deletion letter right there on the spot. Out here in Las Vegas, we actually have a lot of collection agencies that set up out here, which is why when I'm calling some of you guys, you don't answer my phone call because you think I'm a collection agency. But you go there and you give them the payment in full, and I always recommend either paying cash. Never give them your credit card or your checking account information. Okay? Always give cash, money order, cashier's check, prepaid credit card, but you never give them credit card or an actual check to your bank account. Couple reasons why. Let's say there's some additional debt lingering out there, because debt can sit out there for about 3 to 4 years before it even pops up on your credit report. So the last thing you want to do is you're with collection agency and you pay this off, you give them a credit card and something else pops up out there. They now have your credit card and you giving them authorization to go and swipe that credit card for that amount. So never, ever, ever, ever give them a credit card or checking account information. If you have to go to your local drugstore and get a prepaid credit card, do that. If you're local, you can give them cash, which this is the least one I would do, because you always want to keep a paper trail, which is why I always prefer a money order, because you have a receipt with that money order or a cashier's check, you know. So that's how you want to deal with it. Now, if they don't give you the deletion letter, you don't pay it. Now, they may try to trip you up and say, well, we'll give you a paid in full letter. No, you want a deletion letter. So you want to make sure that you're extremely explicit with your detail in requesting that deletion letter. Now, also make sure that you do pay in full. The only way you can get the deletion letter is you do have to pay the dollar, you do have to pay this debt in full. If you do a settlement offer, you lose your leverage for the deletion letter. So essentially the payment in full is your leverage. Keep in mind, they want to get this off the books just as much as you want to get it off your credit report. So a lot of times they will negotiate that with you to give you the deletion letter. Sometimes you do have those that play hardball. They act like you owe them personally, so they give you a hard time about a deletion letter. And if that's the case, you just politely hang up, call back in. I mean, it may take you 4 or 5 calls. But if for whatever reason they don't want to play ball, I just don't pay it. Or I recommend not paying it right away, which leads me to the second option, which is what my company does. We're very good at it, I would like to say, is you dispute it. You want to dispute the debt. Disputing it. Now, disputing it isn't saying that, hey, this is not mine, I've never been late, please remove. Basically, there are laws based upon the Fair Credit Reporting Act that give you and I as consumers, and for those on Instagram, you and I as consumers, the right to be able to dispute anything inaccurate, incomplete, and unverifiable. So if they can't validate or verify that debt down to the penny, they have to delete it off your credit report, no matter if you do owe it. That is one of the legislations that was passed with the Fair Credit Reporting Act. A lot of us don't even know that that's possible. So we've had clients who've had $357,000 accounts, i.e. foreclosures, short sales, or whatever on their credit report. And because they didn't have the proper paperwork to provide valid documentation that they're reporting this accurately to the penny, they have to delete it. So when you're disputing, don't worry about the dollar amount. A dispute is a dispute is a dispute. It's irrelevant. You want to dispute it. Now, be careful about the different canned letters on the internet. You want to make sure that, you know, you're not just taking something verbatim off the net, because keep in mind, usually something that's on the net, it's probably been recycled 1,000,000 times. And what happens is these credit bureaus use a software by the name of eOscar, and the eOscar software recognizes that, and that's generally why you get auto-generated responses saying we're not going to validate your dispute. Sometimes they'll consider it a frivolous dispute and won't let you dispute it. So you always want to make sure that if you are going to pull something off the internet, that you're changing up the verbiage and all of that. Again, my Credit is King book has sample letters in there. If you're a part of the Wealth Mastery with us over at the J. Morrison Academy, I have an entire lessons, well, one in particular about disputing, and have sample letters and different things like that as well. So if you're going to dispute it, just make sure you dispute effectively. Now, with the effectiveness of disputing, make sure you do not, and I repeat, do not dispute online. Now, I know it's tempting. You logged into your Credit Karma, your score just jumped 40, 50 points, so you're excited. And then you go and you click on the link that says dispute online. You never want to dispute online, because again, you're utilizing the same eOscar software. So essentially you're trying to kill them with their poison. They're immune to it. So if you're going to dispute it, always dispute on paper. And That's, you know, one of the most effective ways. And because 70%, over 70% of credit reports have errors on them, you would be extremely surprised on the results that you can get just by a simple dispute letter. So hopefully this information was of value to you. You know, again, my entire mission really is just to be able to give you guys this information and pour back into you. Everybody on IG, just to pour back into you guys, and really hope that you guys not only take this information, but actually do something with it. You know, a lot of times people say, you know, knowledge is power, but it's not. It's applying the knowledge, and that's how you gain the power. So hopefully you guys take this information and actually apply it.